I'm Kyle Poole. I'm a drummer and producer.
Who's some of your influences as a drummer?
My influences as a drummer, I mean, there's so many. The first person that comes to mind is Billy Higgins. The next person that comes to mind is Jeff Tain Watts. Then Brian Blade. Then Philly Joe Jones.
I was going to say,
then
where's the Magnificent Seven in there?
Well, who's in the Magnificent Seven?
Philly Joe, Tony Williams,
Okay,
Max Roach.
Max Roach.
Yeah,
they're all in. That's what I'm saying. It's a harder question to answer. But I would say I started off playing drums at the World Stage, which Billy, he founded that place. I never met him, but
I forgot that's your home.
Right, yeah.
So you grew up in Los Angeles?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of music did you listen to when you were young?
Gospel music, growing up in church, hip hop, jazz music. Probably by the time I was 14 years old, really heavy into jazz music. The first record I ever listened to was Directions in Music with Herbie and Brian Blade and Roy Hargrove. I picked it up in the library.
Blew your mind.
Yeah, I mean, I listened to it. You can ask Emmet, like, if you put it on right now, I know every solo, I know every little hit Brian Blade did, literally. Yeah.
Where did you go to school?
I went to Washington Preparatory High School, which had a great music program at the time. I'm not sure what's happening there right now. And then I went to LA County High School for the Arts.
How'd you end up in New York?
Well, after going to LA County High School for the Arts, I didn't really know about music school and stuff when I was at Washington Prep, the old high school. But when I went to LA County High School for the Arts, all the kids that went to school with me were going to, MSM, Berkeley, Juilliard, and that's kind of when I first started hearing about, you can go to music school and it's a whole thing, So I applied for new school, I got in, and I moved to New York when I was 17 and a half.
Was New York like that for you?
Definitely. But I was so entranced with the scene, being at Smalls every night. Roy used to be hanging, and Roy being on the first record that I had ever listened to ever. Roy was there every night playing, yeah, I just wanted to be there as much as possible. I used to live in the Lower East Side, and so I would walk to Smalls, be there till 4 or 5 in the morning, walk back home. For a good 2 years, every night I was there.
When was the first time you had gumption to get up and jam in front of?
The first night.
Oh, so you've been badass.
No, not even that, but I wanted to be a part of it so bad, First night, first chance I got. I remember multiple nights of sitting next to the drums, it was almost like a fight. I remember actually getting into fights with cats, I was next, or, especially if it was an older cat too, because they thought it was a disrespect thing too. I was 17. Yeah. The art of improvising for me has developed over time. I think in a way I kind of always was improvising, even in church. They don't tell you exactly what to play. It's not like classical music where you have it all written down. I would make up my own parts or make up the drum fill that I was gonna play, and I took pride in that as well. If I did a good job or if it was a good one or if I thought it was hit. But over time, the more you learn about music, I would say Jazz and Lincoln Center was a big study, if that makes sense. The pedagogy there, growing up in that scene, taught me a lot about, this is what you do when this happens, or this is what you do when the piano player plays this, or this is how your ride cymbal should be, definitive,
And when you say Jazz at Lincoln Center, you mean you took classes there or you just hung out?
Hung out. And also, Witten would do master classes. I think he only did one actually, but it was a big deal. And there was a whole scene there at Dizzy's, and Emmet, myself, Russell, we all came up in that scene 2014, 2015. Yeah, and there was a lot. We were listening. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but we were listening to a recording in the car the other day of us playing back then, and like, of course, we've grown in different ways now. We kind of have our own approaches that are a little bit more, I would say, even less refined, but like more ourselves. But back in 2014, we were listening to that recording, and it was like, man, like we really took the pedagogy on. Like, you know, like we really were playing the way that we were like being taught to play, which was so helpful for us and still is helpful for us today.
I love what the Emmet Cohen Trio does with what is called Future Stride. Okay? You guys are going that way, but you're going the other way too. How did that concept evolve, and how did it make you a better improviser?
Well, I mean, speaking of Wenzo, I feel like he was really not forcing on us, but really getting us to listen to the greats such as Louis Armstrong, such as Earl Hines, such as Willie Lyon Smith. And he was really, every time we were hanging out with him, he had them on. So I think we went back further than most jazz musicians usually do these days. We were all checking out that music. We were partying to it. We were dancing to it. So it really like became part of our, I don't know, like ethos, if you will. Like it became a part of our foundation. So as we continue to push the music forward, and also with respect to the music that's people like Wynton Marsalis, people like Miles Davis, people like John Coltrane. We take all those things, but we don't forget about Willie Lyon Smith, and we don't forget about Earl Hines, and we don't, and we put that all together.
What about great drummers from back then? Big Sid Catlett. You get to the drummers and all those folks. Too.
Definitely. Big Sid Catlett, Baby Dodds, Papa Joe, Yeah, it was difficult. I remember being a student, it was difficult to, a lot of those recordings, it's hard to hear the drums, So it was cool to hear musicians like Herlin and musicians like my other man in New Orleans.
Jason, not Jason.
Well, Jason too. Well, Jason came to Jazz and Lincoln Center a lot and did master classes, basically because Michael would bring him there to teach us, like, okay, like this is how the New Orleans tradition, like this is how you play that style of music. Because like I said before, you couldn't really hear it that well on recording. It's funny. So I would say most of my influence from playing that music, New Orleans traditional music, comes more from the drummers that are alive today than it does from, of course it comes from Baby Dodds and them, but like I learned more watching it